The Girl in the Flickering Light, Keanu Reeves' unexpected encounter. An emotional journey begins. A quiet night in Los Angeles. Los Angeles never truly sleeps. It hums with life. Neon signs flickering over cracked sidewalks, late-night food trucks rumbling along narrow alleys, and tired souls drifting through the early hours. But even in this restless city, there are corners where time seems to slow, where life pauses, forgotten and silent. On one such corner, nestled between a boarded-up bookstore and a flickering neon gas station sign, stood a rundown 24-hour laundromat. To most people, it was just another tired building, a place to wash clothes and leave. But to Keanu Reeves, it became something else entirely. Hollywood's most humble star. Despite being one of the most recognizable faces in the world, Keanu lived differently. He never chased the limelight. The luxury cars, red carpets, and five-star dining didn't define him. What he valued were the little things: a quiet subway ride, a conversation with a stranger, or an old bookstore where he could lose himself in forgotten stories. Keanu had always believed that fame wasn't about how loudly you shouted, but how gently you moved through the world. On this particular night, after wrapping up a long day on set, Keanu found himself restless. The moon hung low and heavy, and the breeze carried the faint scent of gasoline and late-night tacos. As he rode his matte black motorcycle through a sleepy street in East Hollywood, his eyes were drawn, once again, to that laundromat. And there she was, a familiar stranger. She sat by the window, just as she had for the past several nights. A small girl, maybe 10 or 11 years old, her silhouette barely illuminated by the flickering fluorescent light inside. Her tiny frame hunched over a pile of clothes, her small hands folding them one by one with incredible care. Keanu slowed his bike, letting the engine idle. It wasn't the first time he'd seen her. 3 weeks earlier, he had noticed her for the first time while grabbing a late-night coffee from a nearby stand. She was alone then, too, folding clothes quietly, her eyes occasionally scanning the door as if expecting someone who never came. At first, he assumed she was just waiting for a parent or older sibling. But night after night, he'd see her, always alone, always folding clothes that looked far too large to be her own. It was strange, and it was haunting. The night he couldn't look away. That night, something inside Keanu shifted. Maybe it was the way she brushed dust from the sleeve of a faded hoodie, or how carefully she folded a pair of jeans with patches sewn into the knees. Maybe it was the loneliness in her eyes, the kind you couldn't act or fake. Whatever it was, it wouldn't let him ride away this time. He parked a few doors down, locking his bike quietly. The city noises faded into the background as he approached the laundromat, his boots echoing softly on the pavement. The door creaked as he stepped inside. The smell of warm detergent mixed with mildew clung to the air. The hum of machines created a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat in an empty room. She didn't look up. Keanu moved toward a machine on the far wall, pretending to check his phone, but his eyes kept drifting back to her. She was folding a pair of oversized jeans, the fabric worn thin. Her clothes were clean, but frayed at the edges. Her sneakers were scuffed, their soles nearly detached. Yet she carried herself with a strange kind of grace, like she knew how to survive without asking for help. The first conversation. After a long silence, Keanu cleared his throat. "Hey," he said gently, keeping his distance. "You've got a good system there. Very organized." She looked up slowly. Her eyes were large and dark, guarded but not unfriendly. "Thanks," she replied softly. "They wrinkle less if you fold them while they're still warm." Keanu smiled. "Smart." She gave a small shrug and returned to folding. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The hum of the machines continued. "I've seen you here a few times," Keanu said. "Late nights." The girl paused, one hand gripping the corner of a shirt. "Yeah, I come here after school. Sometimes I stay late." "Anyone else here with you?" She hesitated. "Not really." "Not really." Keanu didn't push. He knew better than to pry too quickly. He'd learned that some people held onto their stories like lifelines. Unfolding them too fast could unravel everything. A warm gesture. From his jacket, Keanu pulled a wrapped sandwich he had picked up earlier from a nearby cafe. He walked over and placed it on the small plastic table next to her. "In case you're hungry," he offered. "Turkey and cheese. Nothing fancy." She looked at it, then at him. "You don't have to do that." "I know," he said. "That's why I did." A long pause followed, but then she reached out and took it. "Thanks." Keanu nodded and took a seat across from her, letting the silence stretch comfortably this time. He didn't need answers tonight. He just needed her to know she wasn't invisible. The quiet connection. Over the next few nights, Keanu returned. Sometimes he brought food. Other times, a book or a pack of markers. He never asked too many questions. He just showed up. Slowly, the girl began to open up. Her name was Amara. She was 11 years old. She went to a local public school. Her mom worked night shifts, 2 jobs, sometimes 3, and her older brother had left a year ago. Amara didn't say where he went. She just said, "He doesn't come back." She spent her nights at the laundromat because it was safer than being home alone. She'd do her homework under the buzzing lights and wait until sunrise when her mother returned. Sometimes, they'd sleep on the laundry room floor in the back office the owner let them use after closing. And yet, through it all, Amara never once complained. She smiled when she talked about her school. She lit up when Keanu brought her a book of poetry. "Words are like armor," she told him once. "They don't fix things, but they help me feel strong." The day the past came calling, but things were about to change. Because while Amara had found a quiet rhythm to survive, the world around her hadn't forgotten her. And soon, Keanu would discover that this girl, this tiny, quiet fighter, was not just a laundromat ghost. She was the key to something much larger. A secret that someone wanted buried. A truth that could break hearts or heal them. And Keanu Reeves, Hollywood's most humble star, was about to become part of a story far more powerful than any movie he'd ever made. Shadows of the past. The secrets behind Amara's smile. A new chapter begins. In the days that followed, something shifted in Keanu Reeves. It wasn't uncommon for him to feel deeply about people. He'd always been the quiet observer, the man who listened more than he spoke. But this was different. There was something about Amara, this quiet, thoughtful girl folding oversized jeans in a rundown laundromat, that etched itself into his thoughts even long after he left her. He found himself thinking of her in between scenes on set, when he sipped his coffee, when he walked past other children laughing with their parents in the park. She wasn't just another passing face. She was someone whose story mattered. And Keanu knew now, he couldn't just walk away. Small gestures, growing bonds. Over the next 2 weeks, Keanu's visits became routine. He was careful, respectful. He never showed up with fanfare or drew attention to himself. That wasn't his style. He wore his usual black hoodie, kept his head down, and brought thoughtful things. Books, fresh socks, even a flashlight when the laundromat's back lights went out. He learned that Amara loved puzzles and old cartoons, that she was fascinated by outer space, that her favorite color was green, not bright green, but the deep forest kind. She never asked for anything. That made Keanu want to give her everything. One night, as they sat at a corner table, sharing warm noodles from a street vendor, Amara looked up at him. "Why do you keep coming back?" she asked softly, not accusing, just curious. Keanu thought for a moment. "Because I think everyone deserves to be seen. And I see you." Her eyes flickered with something unspoken, a mix of relief and fear. It was the first time anyone had said those words to her. That simple act of being noticed, it meant more than Keanu could imagine. Cracks in the truth, but not everything about Amara's story made sense. Keanu began to piece together small details. She always talked about her mother in the present tense, but he had never once seen her. Amara said her mom worked night shifts cleaning office buildings, but couldn't name where. When he offered to meet her mom one morning, Amara hesitated. She doesn't like people seeing her when she's tired, she said quickly. She just wants to sleep when she gets back. It wasn't that she was lying. It was that she was protecting something. Someone. And Keanu could feel it. Like a puzzle with missing pieces, Amara's world was only showing him what she wanted him to see. A call to action. It was after their 7th visit that Keanu made a quiet decision. He needed to find out more, not to invade Amara's life, but to protect her. Because if something was wrong, if she was in danger, then sitting quietly and folding laundry together wasn't going to be enough. He reached out to a trusted friend, Sophia Lynn, a former investigative journalist who now worked privately, helping families reunite or track missing persons. She was discreet, brilliant, and above all, compassionate. "I need your help," he said over the phone, explaining everything. "You're sure she's not being looked after by someone?" Sophia asked. "I'm not sure of anything. But I know this. No 11-year-old should be alone every night. Something's off." Sophia agreed to look into it quietly. No authorities. No noise. Just research, conversation, and the truth, if it could be found. A sudden shift. But the very next night, Amara didn't show up. Keanu waited inside the laundromat for hours. Midnight passed. Then 1 a.m. no sign of her. The fluorescent lights buzzed louder than usual. The machine spun without purpose. He walked around the block. Checked the nearby gas station. Nothing. A sick feeling crept into his chest. Had someone taken her? Had something happened? He returned the next evening. Still no sign. On the 3rd night, she appeared again, but something was different. She was wearing the same hoodie as before, but it looked dirtier, as if she hadn't changed in days. Her eyes were duller. She didn't speak as much. When Keanu asked if she was okay, she gave him a tight smile. "I'm just tired." But Keanu knew better. "Amara," he said softly, "if there's anything wrong, anything you need to tell me, I'm here." She didn't answer, just folded a sweatshirt with trembling hands and stared at the floor. The story beneath the silence. Later that night, Sophia called. "I found something," she said quietly. "Amara isn't listed in any school district under that name. There's no record of a child matching her description enrolled anywhere in the last 2 years." Keanu's heart sank. What does that mean? It means either she's using a different name, or she's been off the grid, possibly with someone avoiding the system. She paused. There's more. Sophia had combed through local news stories, missing persons, and neighborhood rumors. She found a community blog post from nearly 18 months ago. A woman named Delilah Morrison had been reported missing, last seen with her daughter, Amara. Authorities never found them. The case had gone cold. A blurry photo was attached. Keanu stared at the screen. It was her. A younger Amara, smiling shyly beside a woman who looked exhausted but kind. Her mother. A dangerous truth. Suddenly, it all made sense. The late nights, the evasive answers, the oversized clothes. Amara and her mother had been on the run. From what, he didn't yet know, but it was clear now. They were hiding. Which meant Amara being alone at the laundromat wasn't just sad. It was dangerous. Keanu felt an overwhelming wave of urgency. This wasn't just about kindness anymore. It was about protection. He returned to the laundromat that night and found Amara sitting on the floor, hugging her knees. She didn't look up when he entered. "I know who you are," he said gently. "I saw the photo." Her shoulders stiffened. "I'm not here to hurt you," he added quickly. "I'm just trying to help." She looked up, her eyes filled with a strange mix of defiance and fear. "Then don't tell anyone," she whispered. "Please, if they find us, they'll take me away." Keanu's chest tightened. "Who's they?" "Amara. Who are you hiding from?" Her lip trembled. "My mom. She ran from someone bad." Someone who said he'd hurt us if we ever told anyone. We had to disappear. Keanu knelt down beside her. "You're safe with me," he said firmly. "I promise." And in that moment, something broke inside her. The walls she had built for over a year cracked open, and she cried. For her mom, for the fear she had lived with, and for the strange, quiet man who saw her when no one else did. A new mission. Keanu knew what he had to do next. This wasn't just about being there for Amara. It was about helping her and her mother reclaim their lives. It was about justice, about safety, about giving this brave little girl a future she never thought she'd have. But the road ahead would not be easy. There were people who wanted Amara and her mother to stay hidden. There were truths buried deep in the past. And there were battles still to be fought. Some in courtrooms, others in the heart. But Keanu had made a choice. He would stand by Amara. He would protect her. And together, they would find her mother. Echoes of her mother. Keanu Reeves follows the trail. Silence is never empty. There's a kind of silence that fills the soul. Not peaceful, not calm, but heavy. It's the silence of unanswered questions, of fear hidden behind brave eyes, of a child who's learned to survive by pretending not to be afraid. That was the silence Keanu felt surrounding Amara. Since their quiet exchange the night before, since her whispered confession about being on the run, Keanu couldn't stop thinking about her. Every detail replayed in his mind. The tension in her voice, the haunted look in her eyes, the way she clutched the plastic bag of folded laundry like it was her only anchor in the world. She was just a kid, but she had lived a lifetime of shadows, and Keanu couldn't let her go back to living in them. Searching for Delilah. With Amara finally opening up, Keanu reached back out to Sophia Lynn, the former journalist turned private investigator. "I need to find Delilah Morrison," he said. Fast, quietly. Sophia didn't ask unnecessary questions. She had seen enough of the world to know that sometimes the people running are the ones who have already been hurt the most. Over the next 72 hours, Sophia followed digital threads, hospital bills, old rental records, forgotten Facebook posts. She discovered that Delilah had once worked as a nursing assistant in Oakland before abruptly quitting her job and disappearing without warning. No resignation letter, no final paycheck. Just gone. Her last known address was a tiny one-bedroom apartment above a bakery on the edge of the city. When Sophia visited, the landlord remembered her instantly. She was kind, he said, quiet, but always looking over her shoulder. Did she leave with anyone? Just her little girl. One night, they were gone. Left everything behind, even the girl's toys. Sophia took photos. The small, dusty apartment looked like a time capsule. A cracked family photo still rested on the windowsill. Delilah and Amara, both smiling, but with a kind of weariness behind their joy. The kind you see in people who have learned that happiness is temporary. The unspoken fears. Back in Los Angeles, Keanu met Amara at the laundromat. She was drawing quietly on the back of an old receipt using one of the colored pencils he had given her. He sat beside her and said softly, "I'm trying to find your mom. I'm working with someone I trust." Amara didn't respond at first. She kept shading the outline of a tree. "You said she was running from someone," Keanu continued. "Can you tell me who?" Amara's voice was barely above a whisper. "His name was Ray. He wasn't my dad. Just someone she trusted once." She looked up at him. He changed. How? He started coming around late. Angry. Controlling. He said she owed him. That if she ever left, he'd hurt her or take me away. Keanu clenched his jaw. Rage simmered beneath his usually calm exterior. "Did he ever find you?" Amara shook her head. "We kept moving. New cities, new names. But Mom was tired all the time. She said if anything happened to her, I should go to the laundromat and wait. That someone would find me." Keanu felt his heart shatter a little more. She had been waiting. And somehow, against all odds, it had been him who found her. A letter never sent. That same night, Sophia sent him a message. She had recovered something remarkable from the old apartment, a letter. It had been folded and hidden inside a book of poetry by Maya Angelou, left behind in a drawer. It was addressed simply, to the one who finds her. Keanu sat in his trailer that night, the letter clutched in his hands. He unfolded it carefully, as if it were made of glass. If you're reading this, it means you found her. It means she's safe. At least for now. I've done everything I can to protect her, but I know it may not be enough. If he comes back, if he ever finds us, I don't know what will happen. I don't want Amara to grow up hiding. She's brilliant. She remembers everything. She's strong, even when I'm not. I just want her to know that she is loved. Please, whoever you are, protect her. Don't let her disappear. Delilah. Keanu read the letter twice. Then again. Then again. He could see the handwriting shaking in places, the tear stains smudging some of the words. This wasn't a farewell. It was a mother's scream into the void, praying that someone somewhere would care enough to answer. And now, that someone was him. Ghosts resurfacing. The next day, Keanu received a cryptic message from Sophia. You need to see this in person. It's about Ray. They met at a quiet coffee shop in Silver Lake. Sophia slid a manila folder across the table. Inside were reports, criminal records, court transcripts, police complaints that had gone nowhere. Ray D. Tillman, a former parole officer turned community enforcer with ties to underground debt collection rings. He wasn't just dangerous. He was protected. He had been investigated multiple times, but witnesses often recanted or disappeared. He knows how to disappear, Sophia said. And worse, he knows how to make others disappear. Keanu's blood ran cold. What are the chances he's looking for them now? Sophia hesitated. I found recent activity in Lay. A surveillance team reported someone matching Delilah's description was spotted in Boyle Heights 2 months ago, but she was with a man. Not Ray. Possibly a safe contact. Keanu leaned forward. Then she's alive. Maybe. But if Ray's here, then Amara isn't safe. The man behind the spotlight. In the days that followed, Keanu struggled with an internal war. He was in the middle of a major film shoot, with producers, managers, and agents all expecting his focus. But his heart wasn't on set. He found himself distracted between takes, staring out at the horizon. Not thinking about box office numbers or script rewrites, but about a small girl folding jeans in a laundromat. About her drawings, her quiet dignity, her silence, and her mother, possibly still alive, somewhere out there. It didn't matter that he was Keanu Reeves, the movie star. That didn't help Amara. That didn't protect her from men like Ray. The only thing that mattered now was doing what no one else had done. Stand by her. For real. The plan. That night, Keanu met Amara again. They sat in the back of the laundromat, lights dimmed, surrounded by the low hum of washers spinning. I found a letter, Keanu said quietly. From your mom. Amara froze. Her pencil dropped. It was hidden in a book. She left it for whoever found you. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she said nothing. She's alive, Keanu continued. I believe that, and I'm going to find her. A long silence followed. Then, Amara looked up, her voice cracking. Can I help? Keanu reached out and placed his hand over hers. You already are. A bigger truth. But what Keanu didn't know yet, what no one knew, was that Amara carried more than just memories. She carried a secret. Something her mother had whispered to her once in the dark, just before they ran. A name. A place. A single phrase that could bring everything crashing down for Ray. And everyone who protected him. And Keanu was about to discover that this story was much bigger than one girl, one mother, or one villain. It was about survival. It was about justice. It was about the power of being seen. And the courage to speak. The name she never spoke, the secret Amara carries. When memory becomes armor, There are moments in a child's life that shape them, not like gentle hands molding clay, but like sharp edges cutting glass. Amara had lived through more of those moments than any 11-year-old should. Most children forget things: the colors of toys, the smell of a classroom, the stories their parents read at night. But not Amara. Amara remembered everything. Her mother once called it her superpower, but to Amara, it felt more like a burden. Because she didn't just remember bedtime songs. She remembered bruises hidden under sleeves, the tremble in her mother's voice when the phone rang, the way they'd leave homes in the middle of the night without saying goodbye. And there was one thing she remembered most of all. A name. Not Ray. Someone worse. The man in the suit. It happened one rainy evening in Oakland. Amara and her mother had been living in a small rental above a pawn shop. It was the longest they had stayed anywhere. They were beginning to feel almost normal. Then the man came. He wore a charcoal suit, drove a silver car, spoke softly but made her mother pale with fear. He wasn't like Ray, with fists and threats. He was calm, calculated, cold. Amara had only heard the name once, whispered in a panic between her mother and a neighbor before they vanished again. Marcus Felon. He wasn't just connected to Ray. He controlled him. The true source of the fear. A man with a clean public record and a dark private empire. Someone powerful enough to erase stories. Someone who made people like Delilah disappear. Amara had never said his name out loud. Not until now. The night she spoke. The laundromat was unusually quiet that night. Keanu sat beside Amara, a warm tea in his hand. She was staring at the floor, legs curled under her, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her sweatshirt. "I remembered something," she said softly. Keanu leaned in. There was someone else. Before Ray. Or maybe after. I don't know. He scared my mom more. She paused. His name was Marcus Felon. Keanu repeated the name under his breath. Marcus Felon. Amara nodded. He said, "We were a problem that needed to stay hidden." Keanu felt something cold crawl down his spine. This wasn't just about abuse or running. It was about silence. About power. And suddenly, everything felt bigger, more dangerous. The weight of her words. Keanu brought the name to Sophia Lynn the next morning. Her reaction was immediate. "That name doesn't come up easily," she said. "You're not just dealing with street-level threats anymore. Marcus Felon is polished, connected. The kind of man who donates to charities while building empires in the dark." Sophia dug deeper. Felon had connections to privatized correctional facilities, political donors, and recovery services that bordered on criminal enforcement. But the most alarming find, a case buried in an old county database. Delilah Morrison versus Marcus Felon. An abuse of authority complaint dismissed due to lack of credible evidence. Filed 3 years ago, before Amara and her mother vanished. The pieces began to click. Delilah had tried to fight, had tried to speak out, and Felon made her disappear. The breaking point. Keanu returned to the laundromat the next night, but Amara wasn't there. His heart pounded. Not again. Not this time. He ran 2 blocks, checked the gas station, the alley behind the bookstore. Finally, he found her, curled up behind the laundromat dumpster, clutching a paper bag filled with folded clothes. She had a bruise on her arm. "Who did this?" Keanu demanded, crouching beside her. She shook her head violently. "I tripped. Please don't get mad." "I'm not mad," he said, voice trembling. "I just need you safe. That's all I want." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I don't want to go into a system. I've heard the stories. People disappear there too." "You won't go into a system," Keanu promised. "You're with me now." He lifted her gently into his arms, shielding her from the world. She didn't resist. She just whispered, "Thank you." A quiet sanctuary. Keanu brought her somewhere safe. Not to a hotel. Not to a shelter. But to his own home. Quiet, hidden, surrounded by tall trees and far from the chaos of the city. A place where paparazzi didn't roam, where silence was peaceful, not heavy. She stared in awe at the library wall lined with books, the simple art on the walls, the thick blankets folded with care. "It smells like cedar and pancakes," she said. Keanu laughed, oddly specific. That night, he made her grilled cheese and let her pick a movie. She chose Spirited Away. Halfway through, she fell asleep curled on the couch with a soft pillow under her head and a half-eaten cookie in her hand. For the first time, she looked like a child again. Delilah's shadow. Sophia called the next morning. "I think I found her." "Delilah." Keanu stood up so fast, his coffee spilled. "She's in a women's safe house under a different name. She was admitted 2 months ago after showing signs of exhaustion and stress trauma. She used the alias Cynthia Hill. A nurse remembered her describing a daughter she lost track of. She kept saying, 'Find the laundromat. That's where she'll be.'" Keanu closed his eyes. "I'll go to her," he said. The reunion that waited too long. He arrived at the safe house later that evening. It was small, discreet, filled with quiet women rebuilding their lives. He found Delilah in the garden, pulling weeds beside a patch of overgrown mint. She looked thinner than the photo, older, but her eyes were the same, sharp, tired, and searching for something she had almost given up on. Keanu approached slowly. "Delilah." She froze, turned. "I have Amara," he said, voice trembling. "She's safe." Delilah dropped the gardening tool and collapsed into the bench. Her hands shook violently as she covered her mouth. "She's alive," she whispered. He nodded. "She remembers everything," he said gently. "And she waited, just like you told her to." Delilah wept openly. "I thought I'd failed her. I thought I'd never see her again." "You didn't fail her," Keanu said. "You protected her. Now it's time to bring you back together." The reunion. That night, Keanu drove Delilah to his home. He didn't warn Amara. He wanted it to be real, unrehearsed. She was sitting on the back porch with a book in her lap when the door creaked open. And then she saw her. "Mom." Delilah's voice broke. "Baby girl." They ran toward each other and collided in an embrace so fierce it brought Keanu to tears. They wept, holding each other like lifelines, rocking back and forth, whispering apologies and love over and over again. Keanu stepped back, giving them space, tears welling in his eyes. He had been in movies that saved the world, fought demons, and survived digital dreamscapes, but nothing he had ever done on-screen compared to this moment. Because here, in the quiet glow of a safe home, he had helped save something real. A family. But the fight wasn't over. Delilah looked up at him later that night, eyes red but filled with resolve. "We still have to stop him." Keanu nodded. "We will." Because now they had more than memories. They had a name. They had a story. And soon, the world would hear it. Standing in the fire, Keanu Reeves takes on the system. A promise made. That night, after Amara and Delilah reunited, they stayed curled together on the couch, as if letting go would risk it all vanishing again. Keanu Reeves sat quietly in the next room, sipping tea he'd long forgotten was in his hands. The lights were dim, and the crackling of a soft rain tapped at the windows. Outside, the world moved on. Cars passed, people slept. The city never really stopped. But inside that quiet home, something sacred had been restored. Still, Keanu knew this peace wouldn't last. Because evil doesn't stop just because goodness shows up. Marcus Velen was still out there. And now, Keanu had made a silent promise. Not only to protect them, but to bring the truth into the light. The man in the mirror. The next morning, Keanu stood in his private bathroom, gripping the edges of the sink. He looked at himself in the mirror. He wasn't wearing a costume. No bulletproof suit. No sunglasses and trench coat. No carefully choreographed fight scenes. Just a man. Tired, weathered, real. But behind those eyes burned something deeper. Conviction. He thought of Amara, her drawings, her haunted silence, her sudden laughter when she saw her mother again. He wasn't just helping anymore. He was in this. The plan. Keanu called Sophia Lynn. She answered immediately. "We've got everything we need," she said. "But going public could be dangerous. For them, and for you." "I'm not going to the press," Keanu replied. "Not yet. I want to do this the right way." She paused. "You want to go to court?" Keanu nodded. "If we can prove what Marcus did, if we can expose how deep this goes, we'll save more than just Delilah and Amara." Sophia hesitated. "You'll be painting a target on your back." "I've survived worse," Keanu said. "And they've survived enough." A letter to the DA. Sophia and Keanu worked together to draft a formal legal petition to the district attorney. It included the forgotten police complaint Delilah had filed, medical records of injuries from the time, a witness statement from the neighbor who saw Marcus threaten Delilah, documentation of false identities used to evade capture, a confidential testimony from Amara describing both Ray and Marcus. But that wasn't enough. Keanu included something else, a signed statement from himself, offering to testify in court. As a witness, as a protector, as a man who refused to look away. The world starts watching. Despite their efforts to stay quiet, the story began to leak. It started with a cryptic post on a survivor's advocacy blog. Then a tweet went viral. Keanu Reeves has quietly sheltered a mother and daughter on the run from an abusive system. More soon. Within 48 hours, media vans were circling like vultures outside his neighborhood. Journalists speculated. Talk shows debated. His publicist begged him to deny everything. He refused. Instead, he released a statement. "This isn't about me. This is about a mother who was failed, about a child who was forgotten. If using my name helps bring them justice, so be it. But I will not be silent while they fight alone." The internet exploded. Celebrities, survivors, legal experts, and ordinary people around the world rallied behind the story. #Justice for Delilah began trending. But so did something darker. #Where is Marcus Felon? The counterattack. Keanu expected backlash. What he didn't expect was how quickly Marcus struck back. 2 days after the petition was submitted, Keanu's legal team received a cease and desist letter from Felon's lawyers. Full of legal threats, it accused Keanu of defamation and interfering in private matters. Worse, anonymous news leaks painted Delilah as unstable, questioning her credibility. But Keanu didn't back down. He released another statement. "A woman being scared enough to hide doesn't make her unstable. It makes her a survivor." And then he did something no one expected. He filed a civil suit of his own. The courtroom begins to stir. With Sophia's help and a pro bono team of civil rights attorneys, Keanu filed a suit that shook Los Angeles. Criminal negligence against Marcus Felon. Cover-up claims involving local enforcement. Civil damages on behalf of Delilah and Amara for trauma, endangerment, and forced displacement. The courtroom became the new battleground. Delilah, still shaken but resolute, agreed to testify. Amara was shielded from direct questioning, but gave a recorded video statement. Emotional, detailed, undeniable. And Keanu sat beside them at every hearing, his hand resting lightly on the table, offering the one thing the justice system rarely has. Steadiness, a human moment. During one recess, a reporter caught Keanu stepping outside the courthouse. "You're not a lawyer. Why do this?" she asked. He looked up from his coffee and said, "Because sometimes the people who aren't lawyers, politicians, or activists are the only ones who show up. I just happened to be the one who walked past that laundromat." She blinked. "That's simple." "No," he replied. "It's never simple. But it is right." Whispers from the shadows. But danger still loomed. One night, Keanu returned home to find a single envelope taped to his gate. Inside was a note, typed, "Back off, or she disappears again. For good this time." No signature, no fingerprints, just fear. He called Sophia. She had security increase their surveillance. Police filed a report. But Keanu didn't flinch. He walked into the house, hugged Amara and Delilah tightly, and whispered, "We keep going." The testimony that broke the courtroom. The final day of testimony arrived. Delilah stood, trembling, before the judge. Her voice quivered, but her words were clear. "He told me I didn't matter. That if I ran, no one would believe me. That no one would care, but someone did. A stranger who saw my daughter in a laundromat and didn't walk away." She looked at Keanu, eyes filled with gratitude. "This isn't just my story. It's every woman who's been silenced, every child who's been ignored. And I'm standing here because someone decided to care." The courtroom fell silent. A breathless wait. The judge reviewed the case for 3 weeks. It felt like a lifetime. Then came the ruling. Marcus Vellon, ordered to appear for a full criminal investigation. Delilah, granted full immunity and protection. Amara, placed permanently in her mother's custody. The Reeves testimony, officially cited as a turning point in the pursuit of justice. Keanu closed his eyes, breathed deeply. They had won. But it was more than a courtroom victory. It was the return of dignity, of safety, of family, the ending they never expected. Months later, life had settled into something gentler. Amara was enrolled in a new school, thriving. Delilah was back to working part-time as a caregiver. And Keanu, he still visited, still dropped off books and sandwiches, still showed up just as he had the very first time. One afternoon, Amara handed him a small gift, a sketch she had drawn. It was a laundromat window with 2 figures inside, one tall, one small. Underneath, in bold letters, she had written, "Thank you for seeing me. The quiet between storms. Healing begins. When the noise fades, fame can be deafening." KeanuReeves had grown used to the noise of cameras, the thundering applause after a film premiere, the mechanical repetition of interviews, sound bites, and sound stages. But after the courtroom battles, after the headlines slowed, after justice had found its footing, there was something he wasn't used to. Silence. Not the eerie kind that follows fear, but the soft, sacred kind that follows survival. The kind of quiet that comes when a storm is past and life, fragile and beautiful, begins to rebuild itself. That's where Keanu found himself now. And yet he wasn't the same man who rode past a laundromat months ago on a restless night. That version of him had been searching for stillness. Now he was living it. The unseen impact. The story of Amara and Delilah had captured hearts around the world. News outlets eventually moved on, but something lingered in the public spirit. Donations poured into women's shelters. Anonymous notes filled online forums. Survivors began telling their stories with new courage, all because a stranger noticed a little girl folding laundry with too much weight in her eyes. Keanu never took credit. He turned down every major interview, refused to appear on talk shows, declined lucrative documentary offers. "This isn't entertainment," he told his publicist. "This is someone's life." Instead, he focused on what mattered most, quietly helping more people like them. The Foundation of Light. 3 months after the trial, Keanu launched a private initiative, the Laundromat Project. It wasn't about buildings or press releases. It was about presence. He and Sophia Lynn, along with a small group of trauma counselors, advocates, and lawyers, began visiting low-income laundromats across the city. Why laundromats? Because they were places of quiet struggle, where mothers held their lives together with quarters and plastic bags, where tired eyes looked out of fogged windows, waiting for something better, and sometimes where lost children waited for hope. Keanu didn't go in as a celebrity. He wore the same hoodie, brought coffee, sat on plastic chairs, listened, gave out resources, paid for loads of laundry with folded 20s. He was creating change the only way he knew how. One act of dignity at a time. The ripple effect. One night, in South Central Los Angeles, Keanu sat beside a woman in her late 20s as she quietly sorted baby clothes. She didn't recognize him. She didn't speak at first, but after an hour, she broke the silence. "I saw your story," she whispered. "The girl. The mom. I thought about leaving once. Thought no one would care." Keanu looked at her gently. "And now?" She held up a manila envelope filled with court documents. "Now, I'm going." Keanu smiled, not because she recognized him, but because she believed herself worth saving. That was the mission now. Amara's new chapter. Meanwhile, life for Amara had changed, but not too fast. She and Delilah moved into a small, sunlit apartment in a quiet neighborhood not far from where the laundromat used to be. Amara enrolled in school for the first time in over 2 years. She brought her sketchbooks and shy smile with her. She struggled at first. Crowds made her flinch. Loud voices startled her. She didn't trust adults easily, but one thing anchored her. Every week, without fail, Keanu visited. Sometimes with a book, sometimes with a puzzle, once with a telescope. One night, on the roof of their building, they sat under the stars. "You ever wish you could fly away?" she asked, peering through the lens. "I used to," Keanu said. "But then I realized, some people are worth staying grounded for." Amara smiled. "I'm glad you didn't ride away that night." "So am I," he said. Delilah's voice. Delilah had started working part-time again, helping elderly patients in private homes. But more than that, she started writing. She wrote essays, letters, blog posts, quiet but powerful pieces that told her story without bitterness. Her voice, once buried under fear, now echoed in small communities of survivors who saw themselves in her. And slowly, something shifted. She wasn't just Amara's mother anymore. She was Delilah Morrison, a woman reborn. Keanu's reflection. Late one evening, Keanu sat alone in his living room. The fire crackled. The lights were low. On the table beside him rested 2 things: a folded drawing from Amara, and the old letter Delilah had written to whoever found her. He opened it again. Read it. Paused at the line. "Please protect her. Don't let her disappear." He looked up at the ceiling and whispered, "You brought her back. You both did." Then, for the first time since this all began, Keanu cried. Not from sadness, but from the quiet, overwhelming weight of purpose. A letter from Amara. A week later, he received a letter in the mail. It was handwritten in careful script. "Dear Mr. Keanu, I was thinking about heroes today. We talked about them at school. Some kids said superheroes wear capes. Others said they fight with powers. But I think a real hero is someone who shows up when no one else does. You showed up. Thank you for not riding away. Love, Amara." He folded the letter gently, pressed it to his chest, and sat for a long time in the stillness of that moment. A new road. The past would always be a shadow, but not a chain. Amara, Delilah, and Keanu had found something most people spend a lifetime chasing: connection without condition, love without expectation, purpose without praise. And while the world kept spinning, they had each carved out a place where kindness was a currency and presence was enough. One small laundromat window had become a doorway to something bigger. A new beginning. The story that saved them all. One last ride. Every ending echoes a beginning. The thing about stories is, the best ones never really end. They change hands, find new ears, and continue long after the final sentence is spoken. They live in moments, in hearts, in the quiet ways people carry each other forward, without even realizing it. Keanu Reeves didn't plan to start a story when he stopped outside a flickering laundromat one late night in Los Angeles. He didn't think he was walking into anything more than a quiet mystery. But now, months later, that single moment, one choice to see someone instead of passing by, had become something far greater. It had become a story that saved lives. And now, it was time to share it. An unlikely speaker. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon when Keanu received a call from a youth outreach center on the east side of the city. They were hosting a local event, The Voices We Don't Hear, a program where survivors and their advocates told their stories to at-risk teens, women in shelters, and social workers trying to make a difference. They invited Keanu to speak. He hesitated at first. He wasn't a public speaker. He didn't want applause. He didn't want to be the focus. But then he thought of Amara, of Delilah, of every girl still sitting alone in a laundromat somewhere, waiting for someone who may never show up. He agreed to speak, under one condition. This story doesn't belong to me. I just carried it. The stage. The room was modest. Folding chairs, a simple podium. No camera crews, no flashing lights. Keanu stepped up wearing a plain black jacket, jeans, and soft eyes. The room fell silent as he took a deep breath, folded a piece of paper in his hands, and looked up. "I'm not here as an actor," he began. "I'm here as a man who made a choice to stop one night when he could have kept writing." He told the story slowly, carefully, about the laundromat. About a girl who folded clothes with too much weight in her eyes. About a mother who vanished to protect her child. About secrets, threats, trials, and quiet bravery. He spoke not like a hero, but like a man who had learned from one. And then he ended with this. "If you remember anything from this, let it be this. There are people in this world you may walk past, look through, or forget. But they are carrying stories heavier than you can imagine. And sometimes just being the one person who notices changes everything." Silence. Then applause. Not loud or theatrical, but soulful, earnest, emotional. A standing ovation not for a celebrity, but for a man who had chosen to show up. Full circle. After the speech, a young girl approached him, no older than Amara had been that first night. "My mom's been hiding too," she whispered. "Can someone help her?" Keanu crouched down and smiled. "Yes, someone already is. You." He handed her a card from the Laundromat project. A surprise in the crowd. What Keanu didn't know was that at the very back of the room, quietly seated with a sketchbook in her lap, was Amara. She had come without telling him. She watched him speak, watched him carry their story with such grace and love. When the event ended, she walked up to him and handed him the drawing. It was of the stage and him. And beneath it, in her careful writing, "Sometimes heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they just don't leave." He hugged her tightly, no words. Tears slid down both their cheeks. The final ride. Weeks later, Keanu got on his motorcycle again. Same one. Same jacket. Same quiet hum of Los Angeles streets. But this time, his ride had a purpose. He visited a women's shelter in Koreatown, a community center in Boyle Heights, a new drop-in clinic for kids in Inglewood, each place funded in part by quiet donations and connections he had made since that day. In one shelter, he saw a girl drawing under a flickering light. He left a pack of colored pencils beside her and smiled. She looked up at him, puzzled, but smiled back. And he rode away, not because the story was over, but because he had left something behind. Hope, a legacy of presence. Years passed. Amara grew up, wrote her own book, dedicated it to her mother, and to the man who saw me in the window and never walked away. Delilah opened a small nonprofit to help survivors start over with dignity. Keanu. He kept showing up. No cameras, no press, just presence. Because that's what he learned from that little girl at the laundromat. Sometimes the most heroic thing you can do is stay. The final words. In a quiet interview much later in his life, Keanu was asked what the most meaningful role of his career had been. He didn't mention Neo, or John Wick, or the cult classics. He smiled gently and said, "There was this girl once, folding laundry, waiting for someone who never came. Until I did. That wasn't a role. That was real. And it changed me. The interviewer leaned in. What happened to her? Keanu looked out the window for a moment and said, "She's out there, changing the world now."